This is your host, Violet, and welcome to Glitches in the Matrix. I saw my brother. I was in second grade and sat towards the back of the classroom nearest the door. I was feeling rather antsy that day, not really able to focus on anything due to my grandmother being in the hospital. My teacher was aware of the situation and understandably let me be, so I was just letting my gaze wander. I recall looking over my shoulder and seeing my brother outside in the central area of the school, looking rather lost. I was immediately panicked. Had something happened to my grandma? Was I in trouble? Did I forget my lunch? I raised my hand and let my teacher know that my brother was outside, and after pointing him out, she had the observation that he had a paper bag in his hand, which was presumably my forgotten lunch. I was allowed to go out and flag him down, but as I left the classroom, he turned a corner, seemingly unaware that he had passed my bungalow. I jogged after him and after a few seconds turned to see nothing there. There was no place for my brother to go from there, let alone hide behind. What the heck? In my logical mind, I assumed he went to the office. I jogged to it, a whole 20 feet away from where I was, and again, nothing there. I didn't want to ask the secretary if she had seen him because I thought I would somehow embarrass my brother. I know it was him. He was wearing this very distinct bright orange Superman shirt with the symbol being navy blue. He was only a few years older than I am, and I wouldn't confuse him for anybody else. Dejected, I walked back to my class. The teacher pulled me aside later and asked me what had happened, since she noticed my demeanor and my lack of lunch. I explained myself, and she decided to call my mom. Turns out my brother was with my mother all along. He understood what was happening with my grandmother and wanted to say his goodbyes before she passed away. They were just getting ready to head back to the hospital when my teacher called to inquire about my brother's whereabouts. It was my brother I saw. But it wasn't at the same time. I still have no explanation for this. My street disappeared. Okay, guys. So I've been reading a lot of these since discovering it a few hours ago, and I keep seeing people saying that particular stories suddenly remind them of their own personal experiences, which made me think it was a load of rubbish. Except, while reading, I suddenly remembered experiencing a glitch. I lived in a town on the outskirts of York, UK for 2 years. It was small and I knew it very well. I had been riding my motorcycle for about 6 months and done multiple trips just around my estate when getting to grips with riding or just wanting a blast of fresh air. Anyway, one day I got geared up, not properly, just helmet and gloves as I wasn't going onto the dual carriageway. I only wanted to do a loop around the estate. I put her into choke mode, waited around 5 minutes, hopped on and began my little ride. That'd take usually about 3 minutes. I did my usual loop, usually ending at the bottom of my street. Except I wasn't. I was. The houses opposite my street were there, and I am 100% I was at the bottom of my street, except the street wasn't there. It was just more houses. I thought it was ridiculous. I did another loop. The same loop as always. Once again, I wasn't there, even though I should have been. I did one more loop very fast, with no luck. I just stopped and looked around. Where the hell was my street? I started to feel very uncomfortable. What if it was never there? What if my family didn't exist there? All in a very short moment, I was contemplating what would happen if I never find it. Who do I call? What do I do? I started to feel sick with anxiety. I began to feel genuine worry about what would happen if it doesn't come back. I did 2 more loops, and finally, on the last loop, it was there. Now, I know this isn't something ridiculously deep or strange, but I know my street was there, except it wasn't. I guess like a lot of people on here, I kind of forgot about it. I remember mentioning it to my girlfriend, but probably laughed it off. Sorry if this wasn't well worded. It's 4 a.m. and I'm knackered. I blame the ridiculous amount of good stories on here. Anyway, that's my piece. It freaked me out so much I kind of started to feel a bit overwhelmed thinking about it and was reading other stories, so I thought I'd let it off my chest. I've made a quick maps screenshot and annotated it to show how simple the route was and which street disappeared, but I'm not really sure how to upload pics. Too long didn't read. My street temporarily disappeared. After going in numerous circles, it came back. Art project glitch. About 10 years ago, when I was in middle school, I had an art class right after lunch. Every day I would go to the bathroom right before lunch ended to fix my makeup and wash my hands, etc. One Monday, I was washing my hands and noticed a bunch of little tiny cuts all over my fingers. Not deep enough to break the skin, just little scrapes. I had no idea how they got there, but anyway, I went to my class. When I got to class, I realized that we were starting a new project, candle making. And we were told on Friday to bring in aluminum cans, but many of us had forgotten to. Our teacher told us we could go to the vending machines and buy some if we didn't want to have our grade deducted for the day, so we went and got some Arizona cans. To make the candle molds, we had to cut the tops off the cans with scissors. At the end of the class, one of my friends noticed that she had tiny cuts on her hands from the Arizona cans. And everyone else noticed the same. No one had realized how sharp the aluminum edges were when handling them. I told my friend that the cuts had been on my hand before class, but everyone thought I was mistaken because it was obvious the tiny cuts were from cutting the cans. I only had art class every couple days, so a few days later I was in the bathroom fixing my makeup after lunch, and I noticed these tiny little specks of purple on my face. I picked them off, and they left little stains that I rubbed off with a wet paper towel. That day I got to art class, and every table had some wax at it and some dye blocks. I specifically remember that our table had one unopened package of a very dark color. When we mixed the dye blocks with the candle wax, it turned to a purple wax. After the girl sitting next to me poured the wax into her mold, she turned to talk to me and I noticed the same tiny purple spots on her face. She got them off and they left some tiny purple stains that rubbed off. They were from the wax we had just made, but they were the same ones that were on my face before we ever made it. To this day, thinking about it freaks me out. I hadn't touched any of the cans and the dye hadn't ever been used to make wax, but somehow my fingers had already been cut and my face had already been splashed with wax before any of it was ever supposed to happen. Edit. After reading more of this sub, I think my little story is interesting/unique because it happened once and I knew it was really weird. I thought out possible explanations a lot and considered every way I could have gotten those cuts or somehow misremembered seeing them on my hands in the bathroom. Then a few days later, the same thing happens again. The second time is what really confirmed that something bizarre happened and ruled out misremembering for me. Matrix stalling and repeating. This is an event that happened several years ago when I was still in college. I would like to preface with a few things. I am an otherwise extremely rational and skeptical person. If someone told me this story, I probably wouldn't believe them. I was not on any medication or mind-altering drugs. I have no history with mental health problems and have never had any kind of lapse in my consciousness. I was sitting on a couch in the mathematics building at my university. The building is shaped kind of like an obtuse angle with an entrance plaza at the vertex and 2 exits at the end of long hallways. I was sitting in the middle of these hallways in such a way that I could see both the entrance plaza doors and the door at the end of the hallway. The hallway is rather long. This will be important later. It was mid-afternoon and the day was showing down, so the building was quiet. The white noise from the vending machine and soft muffled voices from inside offices provide a perfect study environment for me. I looked up because I heard the door at the end of the hallway open and I see a sketchy-looking guy in an oversized coat, it was spring, and a bandana hurrying towards me, hands in pockets. He hesitantly approaches me as he gets closer, slightly nervous, and addresses me. Our conversation is burned into my memory and went as follows verbatim. Sketchy guy. Hey. Me. Hi. Guy. Are you a Christian or Catholic? Me. Well, not really either of those things. I'm not really religious. Guy. Oh, yeah. But you believe in helping people, right? Me. Yes, I do when I can. Guy. Good, of course you do. Well, here's the thing. I have to get over to local town for a memorial service, and I don't have any money for a bus ticket. I was wondering if... Pretty girl with a pink backpack walks by. Oh, damn girl. Wow. Oh yeah, anyway, I was wondering if you could spare $10 for a bus ticket because I really need to pay my respects. Me. I'm sorry, I don't have any cash. This is actually true. At this point, he absolutely loses it. His reaction is completely ridiculous. He starts yelling at me, accusing me of being racist and superior, and that I don't actually believe in helping people. He starts ranting about how rich white kids ought to live a day in the life and see how long they last. I was terrified that this man who still hasn't taken his hands out of his pockets was about to shoot me. He was livid, and I was too stunned to know how to react. Before I could even open my mouth to defend myself, he storms off towards the entrance plaza to the building, and I see him walk out. This is where it gets really weird. Immediately after he walks out of the building, it gets really, really quiet. Like the vending machine stops its low hum. The buzz of the fluorescent lights goes away. There's no voices to be heard and no one in sight. It's a stillness unlike I've ever felt. Like I was completely alone and the world just stalled for a few seconds. And all of a sudden I'm brought back to reality with the familiar sound of the door at the end of the hallway opening. All of a sudden, the world is back in motion. Sounds were back, doors opening, voices, life had returned. But I was in shock at who I was watching walk down the hallway. It was the same sketchy guy. No question about it. Same hasty walk, same coat, bandana. Everything down to the way he approached me was exactly as it had happened moments before. Keep in mind that he had just walked out of the door at the opposite end of the hallway seconds before. This moment of stillness was extremely brief, 5 seconds perhaps. This hallway was fairly long as stated before, and it would be almost impossible to run down its length in 5 seconds, let alone run around the outside of the building and re-enter at the opposite end that quickly. He approached me and repeated his words exactly. Hey. Hi. Are you a Christian or Catholic? I'm not religious. I am too in shock to even think to respond differently at this point. I was so confused. Oh, yeah, but you believe in helping people, right? Me, starting to question reality. Yes. Good, of course you do. Well, here's the thing. I have to get over to local town for memorial service, and I don't have any money for a bus ticket. I was wondering if... Pretty girl with a pink backpack walks by. Oh, damn girl. Wow. Oh yeah, anyway, I was wondering if you could spare $10 for a bus ticket because I really need to pay my respects. At this point, I have somewhat come to my senses, and I remember how poorly he reacted last time, so I decide to do something a little different. I pull my wallet out of my pocket and open it to show him I have no cash in it. I'm sorry I don't have any cash. I would like to help you, but I don't have any. Oh, yeah, that's fine. God bless. Thanks anyway. And he walks out like nothing out of the ordinary happened. I sat on this experience, not telling anyone for weeks because I literally thought I had some kind of disorder or maybe a brain tumor or something. I was living with paranoia and fear that I would start hallucinating things and waited with dread for more symptoms to surface. But here I am years later and nothing remotely like this instance has happened. I shared it with my brother, thinking he would dismiss it for a lie or think I was going insane. I felt kind of stupid even telling the story, and it seemed so unreal when I told it. But he believed me and told me to post it here and see if anyone else has had a similar glitch happen to them. I considered that it was a prank performed by twins, but it didn't seem likely because it would have had to have been 2 sets of twins to include the pink backpack girl. Which is possible, but even more unlikely, and it doesn't explain the weird lull I experienced between the 2 encounters. Was it a real glitch? Am I insane? I don't know. I caught a glitch in the act. This happened a few years ago after I moved into my house. My wife, kids, and I had just come home from shopping in the afternoon. As I made my way to the kitchen to put some groceries away, I stood in the doorway and noticed one of my 2-year-old son's plastic sippy cups sitting on our butcher block table in the kitchen. The cup, however, was not standing right. It looked skewed, tilting away from me, almost sinking into the table as if someone had cut a 30-degree slice off the bottom of the cup. I immediately thought that someone broke the cup and had somehow caved in the bottom, but when I walked over and picked it up and flipped it over, it was not damaged. The cup was perfectly flat on the bottom. I set the cup back down in the same spot, and now it sat upright as it should. I tried turning, tilting it to try to get it to sit in that skewed position as I saw it in, but I couldn't. Then I turned around to see my wife in the doorway looking at me, and she says, "You saw it too?" I normally would have thought my eyes played a trick on me, but my wife saw it too. Also, I'm positive lights and shadows could not make the cup appear to tilt as it did. I even tried caving in the bottom of the cup myself, but it's a pretty solid plastic cup. I sometimes wonder if I maybe caught a glitch in the act. Maybe if I was a few minutes late coming home, the cup would have completely sunk into the table and disappeared. I have read stories of people losing items right after they drop them, or objects disappearing from their nightstand after they wake up. Perhaps I witnessed what happens to these missing objects. I hope you enjoyed these glitches in the Matrix. Do you have a story of your own to share? If so, my email is available in the description. Please be sure to include a short statement of consent and let me know whether it's a true story or a fictional account. And be sure to join us next time.